And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Do we have to see this in our country? I mean, this is just unbearable, and it needs to be intolerable. And so, maybe I can, by speaking directly to white people, say, look, this is not who we are. We've got to do everything possible to improve policing.
Oh, shut up.
Right at
shut up. Just go away already. Crawl back into a hole. Now she's going to talk to white people about shooting black people. Not about the dead cops lying in graves around America. Again, attacking white people. This rich white criminal attacking white people. Well, I'm not going to get excited. What do you expect from a politician whose eyes are crossed? Her mind is crossed, so what do you expect? She's unfocused. That's all. I read this morning, by the way, that the old Bush, that's Bush 1, is voting for Hillary. Yep, GW is George Bush, the first one, is voting for Hillary. In fact, so many Republicans are voting for Hillary now, I wouldn't be surprised to read tomorrow morning that secretly Pence is going to vote for Hillary. I mean, we know that losers like Cruz, Kasich, Jeb, Lindsey Graham, and the other secret globalists are going to vote for Hillary, but Bush voting for Hillary? Anyway, this morning I almost broke the television again. Good thing I have a bulletproof television set. I watched the liar in chief in front of the UN, and of course I didn't like the speech. Would expect to hear something else. But what I noticed about him was an extension of his psychopathic behavior to a new level. I've known he's a psychopath, and there are definitions of a psychopath. He meets every definition of psychopathology. And I'm talking about Hillary Clinton's predecessor, your current president, Barack Obama. And you say, well, why waste your time? He's going to be out of office soon, because his policies are going to be continued by the cross-eyed. The cross-eyed woman wants to continue his policies. A day after the chicken bomber, a day after the Muslim chicken bomber, she's talking about tolerance. A day after the chicken bomber, with a Muslim who was welcomed here with open arms. Open arms. We welcome this whole family with open arms. The most tolerant nation on earth filled with morons. Bowing down to these third worlders, bowing down like they're better than us, bowing down like they're sacred, bowing down as though they're the good ones and we're the bad ones. 15 years we bow down to these sacred third worlders. And bombs go off. Stabbings occur. Day after that, Obama gives a speech to the UN this morning that achieved a new level of insanity. It was not just what he said. I mean, it was like any other college professor, let's say at NYU. Any kid listening to me who had to go through college in the last 10 years has heard the same kind of crap from college teachers for the last 15 years. America bad, third world good, income inequality, white privilege. Meanwhile, he's the most privileged man on earth, and he's not white, is he? How could he be the most privileged man on earth and say that there's white privilege? I don't get that part of it. How can he raise money like he does and say that the political system in America has too much money in the system? Okay, so the hypocrisy was overwhelming. That's not the part that struck me in watching the madman speak at the UN today. It was his demeanor and his lecturing tone. It was as though he was lecturing everyone in that audience, every nation on earth, as he knew better than all of them. He knew what they must do, and only he knew how to save the world. He went on and on with this madness until eventually I had to turn it off and off. I couldn't take another minute of it. And collected by the Great Grabian News Service is the fact that 11 times the madman talked down the United States in his final United Nations address. He highlighted how America was a failure 11 times before these third world sterling individuals, you know, people like those from Congo who eat people for breakfast. Told them that we're not as good as those in the Congo who eat people for breakfast. He said in America there's too much money in politics. Well, let's see. How much did he raise this year for his fellow Democrats? He says there's too much entrenched partisanship. This is while he attacks everyone who opposes him. Anyway, I don't want to read all of this to you. It sounds like a bad college lecture. And I think you ought to hear the 11 separate opportunities where your president, the madman, talked down this nation this morning at the UN.
Yes, in America, there is too much money in politics, too much entrenched partisanship, too little participation by citizens, in part because of a patchwork of laws that makes it harder to vote. That while we've made our share of mistakes over these last 25 years, and I've acknowledged some, we have strived, sometimes at great sacrifice, to align better our actions with our ideals. And we can only realize the promise of this institution's founding to replace the ravages of war with cooperation if powerful nations, like my own, accept constraints. Sometimes I'm criticized in my own country for professing a belief in international norms. I've noticed as president that at times both America's adversaries and some of our allies believe that all problems were either caused by Washington or could be solved by Washington. And perhaps too many in Washington believe that as well. So just as I pursued these measures here at home, so has the United States worked with many nations to curb the excesses of capitalism, not to punish wealth, but to prevent repeated crises that can destroy it.
All right, you got the picture.
A society
keep going.
Less of oligarchs than ordinary citizens will rot from within.
You know, if
in advanced economies like my own, unions have been undermined.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
And many.
Turn it off. Just as vice departments and police departments no longer exist. I mean, when years ago there was a homicide detective, a vice detective. Today, all vices have become normalized, so there's no vice detectives anymore. They look for drunk drivers now. I don't know what they look for. Pornography is legal. Prostitution is fundamentally legal. Marijuana is legal. So what's illegal? There's no vice anymore. So just as there's no vice, there's no sedition. They've eliminated laws of sedition. Obama's committed sedition so many times that people have forgotten what it is. But who cares? That's all. Chicken bomber means nothing. The bombs go off. Again, the lies come out. De Blasio, the fool, comes out and says that we need more Muslims, not less. That's all. Then we read today that the chicken man's father said he turned him in, then he said he didn't turn him in, then he said he turned him in 2014. He thought he was a terrorist. Then he disavowed that he was a terrorist. He thought he was a terrorist because of the way he treated chickens. He didn't like the way he put the wings in the box. He thought the thigh should go first, and because of that, he called up the anti-terrorism task force, and when they came, he said, I was wrong. It wasn't my son putting the wings on top of the legs. It was the legs on top of the wings that made me think he was a terrorist, but had nothing to do with terrorism. I thought he stabbed his brother, but he didn't really stab his brother. His brother accidentally got poked by a chicken wing, and I'm sorry for calling the terrorism task force. Please go away so I can pray to Allah. And there's no Islamist links in this house. Now, just because the wife left along with him and the mother 2 days before doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the fact that he was a chicken seller. He hated gays, but that's not bad because our religion hates gays. He hated America, but that's not bad because we all hate America. The wife left the USA days before the event, but she knew nothing about it. She was going over there to study Afghan ways. She wanted to learn how to make scarves. She was studying how to become a milliner in Afghanistan. There's no relationship whatsoever between Islam and this terrorist attack that occurred. He's simply a lone wolf with a pressure cooker that went off. And let me tell you something else. Those pressure cookers had nothing to do with terrorism. He was on the way to New York to explain to other people how best to make chicken the Afghan way. That is what it was, and this is an example, a further example of racism, according to what I've seen. And please leave me alone now. I have to go back and put the chicken in the fryer. That's what we got. That's the best we can do. Once again, Jay Johnson failed us. Once again, the FBI failed us. Once again, everyone failed us except local police. Once again, the burden fell upon the local police, who apparently are less constrained by the political insanity that Obama has imposed upon DHS and FBI. Once again, it was local police who took the bullets. Once again, the FBI was nowhere to be found. Once again, the DHS was nowhere to be found. That's all. And that's the opening to the show so far. We got more for you. We got the terrorist father speaking out. Did any of you hear the Donald Trump interview? It was like no one heard it. You know, Donald Trump was on this show live yesterday in one of the most amazing one of the most amazing media appearances of his entire campaign. It was a news story. Listen to me carefully. You know that I'm the most revered talk show host to my audience. That's a given. That's why you listen. But you also know I'm the most reviled to everyone else in the media. And you know why. Yesterday, Donald Trump did something he's never done before, so far as I know. Correct me if I am mistaken. He came on the show an hour earlier than he was supposed to. We got a call 1 minute before the show. He was on his way into the auditorium to speak to, 35,000 people, Robert, or more than that? He spoke to me on his cell phone as he walked into that arena like a gladiator, in that long corridor that boxers walk down, that entertainers walk down, that statesmen walk down. He was on the phone live with this audience on the Savage Nation. And a few seconds after, he said, Robert, do you have the end of that thing, the short piece where he says, I respect you because you're honest, true, and straight? Could you please play that? That was the most amazing thing he ever said, but that's not the point of this. If you find it, it's okay. I ask for things at the last minute. It's hard on the poor guy on the board. It's not easy to find. If you have it, play it, because a lot of people missed the show yesterday. I don't know where they were, but they weren't here. Robert, are you hearing me? Just say you hear me, but you're looking.
I did this call because you've been my friend. You've been so honest and straight and fair, and I appreciate it, and I always will.
Honest and straight and fair. Well, now you know why I'm hated in San Francisco, because they're dishonest, not straight, and unfair. But the fact of the matter is, that's why I'm hated on Fox News, because I'm too honest, too straight, and too fair for Blondie and her gang of screechers over there. But that's not the reason I'm mentioning this, because seconds after he said that, listen to me, seconds after he said that, he went out to the audience live. Have you ever heard of an interview like this before? How dynamic that was? I did. It's very, very unique. It's going to be a potpourri day. A potpourri, a sachet, mixture of flowers, mixture of scents, mixture of feelings. 2 days after the Muslim chicken bomber. 2 days after the slasher in Minneapolis, buried by the news. They didn't show you that. The Somali, the African Somali Muslim who stabbed people. You think he just cut them like with a nail file? They're hiding the pictures from you. You know what the Somali did to people? He carved them up like a bird. He cut them open like a bird. And he was only stopped by a cop who was also a man who taught tactical pistol training. And you know the rest of the story? Those of you who think we don't need guns? The Somali Muslim who was stabbing randomly in the mall, asking people if they were Muslim and about Allah. Again, they left it out of the Daily News and the New York Post. And you know the reasons why, don't you? He was carving people up. And finally he came to the stone wall of a white man with a gun who was trained to use it. And guess what the tactical officer did? As the Somali Muslim lunged at him with the knife, as shown on footage, this was not a black-on-white crime, as Hillary would have you believe. As this throwback third world maniac lunged at the cop to stab him, he didn't know he was a cop, he was off duty. The cop instinctually pulled his gun and shot him, but that didn't stop the Muslim from Somalia. He came at him anyway, and he had to shoot him again 2 more times to finally kill the animal. The animal had to be put down with 3 shots. 3 shots the Somali Muslim took before he went down. For those idiots amongst the audience who think that you can stop people by talking to them when they're out to get you. I've seen training films of a man with a knife, and I was warned in these training films when I was going for my CCW. I was shown pictures of a Filipino knife fighter, and we were told that if they get within 20 feet of you, you're dead if they have a knife. They'll cut you to ribbons. And this tactical officer had the wherewithal to shoot this animal dead. Do you understand what I am saying to you? Many of you are terrified of guns. You're terrified of your own shadow. You don't know what to do, and you think by just repeating the garbage you learned at NYU, you're going to stop them. They've been at war for 1,400 years. It has nothing to do with our politics. It has nothing to do with our philosophy. It has nothing to do with Israel. It's their religion, stupid.